Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 3 of the National Wrestling Alliance. So, we have a little bit of a weird episode today. I tried to record episode number 3 a little bit earlier, and the video file is just gone. It's not there. It's not where it should have been recorded to. I know I hit record twice at the beginning, once at the end, and everything was supposed to be good. So I'm going to real quick here give you guys a recap of the 23rd episode of NWA Power, which you missed. So I got a 54 overall, 225 people were in attendance. The viewership was up from the last episode with just over 12,000. But to run through it, we had a pre-show women's match. We had the Hart Foundation defeating Eli Drake and James Storm. James Storm took the pin. They got in each other's faces. They started arguing. They got into a brawl. Security had to separate them. Tessa Blanchard beat Ashley Vox. Tessa Blanchard then warned Thunder Rosa that she's coming for her title. The Motor City Machine Guns defeated the Wild Cards, which, if you remember, was a big match because afterwards, Nick Aldis made the executive decision that Strictly Business is no more. Nick Aldis no longer needs the services of the Wild Cards. That was the stipulation on that match. Zicky Dice defeated newcomer Drew Parker to retain the NWA World Television title. And in the greatest of all time segment, FTR challenged the Rock and Roll Express to a 10-minute challenge on this upcoming episode of Power. If they can last 10 minutes, they will get a world champion, If they can last 10 minutes, they will get a world tag team title match at the upcoming event, which we are going to announce in this show is going to be next week. It will be the NWA Thanksgiving special. So, kind of setting that up in the 24th episode of Power. And then we had Nick Aldis defeat Marshall Von Erich on the post show. Just want to, since Nick Aldis is already being paid, want to have him do double duty, do the angle, and do a match. So now, let's look forward to this episode of Power, episode number 24, and it is going to be a stacked card. We start with Zicky Dice versus Joe Henning for the NWA World Television Championship. So Joe Henning has made the jump to the NWA, another big addition to the roster. We have a 4 women's number 1 contenders match for the NWA World Women's Championship. Cheerleader Melissa faces Serena Deeb, faces Melina, faces Allison Kay. Who will win that match? And then, as we said, we have the 10-minute challenge match. FTR takes on the Rock and Roll Express. If the Rock and Roll Express, they don't even need to win. They just need to last 10 minutes, and they get a shot at the World Tag Team titles. And then, in our main event, it has just been announced Eli Drake will take on former partner James Storm for the number 1 contendership to the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. It should be a fantastic match. It is a huge night of action. And now, let's get into episode number 24 of Power. We start with a pre-show match. It is a 4-way tag team women's match. Turns out it was an elimination match, but Tessa Blanchard's team wins the match. Tessa and Rachel Ellering. It gets a 42. This is just to get some of these women experience, exposure, and help them improve, because we need to start using people, and they will all start to come to be parts of the roster. But now we move on to the main card. In about that, Subpar Wrestling and Little Heat, Benjamin Carter defeated Royce Isaacs in 10:56 by pinfall with a Phoenix Splash. This gets a 44, Isaacs get a 43, and Carter gets a 33. So one thing I forgot to add was breaking up of the Wild Cards on, not the Wild Cards necessarily, but Strictly Business on the last episode of Power was because Tom Latimer is currently involved in a scandal, and so it was a quick, easy way to write him off television. I didn't necessarily want to end Strictly Business. I do quite like Strictly Business in real life, but with Tom Latimer having an in-game, thing going on about him, and with penalties, I didn't want to incur that anymore. So we're just going to get away from the scandal, and we're going to maybe push Royce Isaacs as a single star, but we'll see. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have a sit-down interview with Renee Young about their decision to come to the NWA and the great state of the NWA's tag team division. This gets a 48. Angle gets the crowd hotter. We're very happy with that one. In a decent match, Serena Deeb defeated Allison Kay, Melina, and Cheerleader Melissa in 13:24 when Serena Deeb pinned Melina with a spear. This gets a 51. Cheerleader Melissa was the best performance in the match, but Serena Deeb was very close. Not even really that close, to be honest. She was a step down, but it gets the crowd hotter. We're happy with the way this one went, and we move on. Zicky Dice, in a decent match, defeats Joe Henning in 11:07 by submission. Zicky Dice makes defense number 4 of his NWA World Television title. This gets a 48. Henning performs to a 45. Zicky Dice to a 39. I really wanted to bring in Joe Henning. I think he kind of got the shaft in WWE, and I think we can do some good things with him in his older age here, and hopefully give him a nice little end send-off to his career. Tessa Blanchard enters the studio and walks to the interview area. She's walking with purpose. She's mad. And Renee Young says, Tessa, please give us your thoughts on not being in the women's #1 contenders match earlier tonight. And Blanchard says, what do you think my thoughts are, Renee? I'm angry. Very angry. I came into the NWA with more pedigree than anyone who has ever walked through that curtain. I've dominated any woman put in my path. It should be me challenging Thunder Rosa. What do I have to do to... And then it's almost like a light bulb gets turned on in her head. You know what? I think I found just the way to make my point. I know what I need to do to prove I earned a shot at the NWA World Women's title. And she walks off. This gets a 59. So a quick interview here between Tessa Blanchard and Renee Young as we continue the show moving. In about that, a good heat and decent wrestling, the Rock and Roll Express drew with FTR in 10 minutes for a time limit draw, so they have made it. The Rock and Roll Express have earned an NWA World's Tag Team title match against FTR. This gets a 51. FTR really carries the match. In their old age, the Rock and Roll Express are not quite what they used to be, not performing that well, but we're still happy with the match regardless. I think it did very well. In about that, a great wrestling and decent reaction from the crowd. Eli Drake defeated James Storm in 21-32 by pinfall with a fast roll-up. This gets a 59. Both men performed very well in this match, but it's a flash pinfall finish. I didn't want either man really getting the solid victory here, so it's a flash pinfall for Eli Drake. And after the match, Drake extends a hand to James Storm, who's laying on the ground. Storm look up at Drake and down at Drake's hand, and he takes it, and he's helped to his feet, and the two embrace in the middle of the ring. Storm raises Drake's hand. They've seemingly forgiven each other. And Nick Aldis enters the studio and just kind of stands at the little curtain by the studio and claps, acknowledging his next challenger, Eli Drake. This gets a 72. We're very happy with that one. So this was a great way to end the main show, and now we have a post-show match where Nick Aldis defeated Drew Parker in 15:46. This gets a 40, 58 for Aldis, 33 for Parker. So for the show as a whole, what do I think it got? It got a very good main event, a couple very good matches there, and a number of good segments, including our last segment. So I'm going to say that as a whole got a 61. I'm going to be very optimistic here and say a 61, and that's my gut instinct, and I'm going with it. We got a 58. We're very close. Happy with that. That is by far our best episode of Power. It increases our popularity in 18 regions, and now let's see how we did on television. So that episode number 24 of NWA Power was a 58 held in the Center Stage studio in the Southeast region in front of 222 fans, a .01 on TV, which equates to 12,395 viewers. So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and I will see you guys next week for NWA Power 25. No, not NWA Power 25, the NWA Thanksgiving special episode. See you guys then.